If we keep the amount of output fixed and just vary the proportion of the inputs, the marginal rate of technical substitution tells us how much we need to vary, what ratio we can vary them in. But what happens if we increase all the inputs proportionally? So we keep the proportions the same, but we just multiply them all by some number. For example, let's suppose we start with L and K, L units of labor and K units of capital, and we multiply both of the inputs by 2. We double them both. Well, if that is simply equivalent to doubling the output, so if doubling the inputs leads to a doubling of the outputs, or you multiply the inputs by any given number, let's say 5 or 10 or 20 or whatever it may be, and that just multiplies the output by the same number, we say that that's constant returns to scale. So the output increases proportionally with the input. So if you have a replicable production process, for example, well, that would yield something like a constant returns to scale production function. If you want to double the inputs, all you do is you just open up a second factory. If you want to triple, you just open 3 factories and so forth. Increasing returns to scale is when, if I double all the inputs, I don't just get double the output, I actually get more than double the output. So think of a scenario where the more you produce, the better you are at producing. Then if I double the inputs, then I'm doing more stuff, and so I'm actually quite more productive, and so we're all going to be producing even more. So specialization can yield increasing returns to scale. So you think of having a bigger factory with more workers, then each worker can then specialize on one specific task and get better at doing that. Decreasing returns to scale is when you double all the inputs, but you don't get double the output, you get less than that. Now, why would we ever expect to see decreasing returns to scale? And the reason is because our models are never going to be complete. There's often going to be something missing from the model, something that we haven't captured in the model. So if there's some input that is limited, that hasn't been captured in the model, that would limit production. So for example, you might run out of land to build new factories on. So if you have to keep building more factories, so let's say you have a replicable process, as long as you can build new factories, you can replicate it. But if you run out of space to build new factories, well, now you're going to have them be crowded, they're going to be less productive, and so forth. Typically what you're going to see in practice is that the production technology is going to be increasing returns to scale for low levels of output, and once you get to very high levels of output, it's going to be decreasing returns to scale.